Okay, so the topic that drew the most questions last time was the path that Bill and Ed have gone on. What's it like for them? There are also people asking, well, how can I do the same thing? And my response is always that, well, you want to know what you're getting into first because it's a long and arduous path. There's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of commitment involved, which is why I respect Bill and Ed so much. But now I want to explain what I mean by that exactly, what they had to go through. None of these things are requirements for anyone who just wants to study the Tao, who just wants to utilize Tao principles in their own lives. All of these things are optional. You don't have to do any of it. So, question, how did Bill and Ed become, and this is the Chinese, Tanzu? So the first character, Tan, that means the altar table or the overall shrine. It depends on the way that it is used. And then Zu means owner, master of. So the two together will be the shrine owner. And it's pronounced Tan Zu. So in English, you would probably say Zu, like, Z-O-O. That's about as close as we can get in English. Previous attempts of phonetically transliterating Chinese have used a combination like T-Z-U, Zu, because it has a little bit of that T sound right in front of it. So Tanzu, that is the formal title for both Bill and Ed. So let me talk about where they came from previously. Bill had this idea that he wanted to, when I first met him, which I think was about more than 10 years ago, the idea he had at the time was that I want to become a Tao master. So that was what he wanted. Later on, he would absorb additional lessons, and it gave him a whole new perspective. So I will explain that in just a moment. Ed, as you heard, had always been a student of philosophy in addition to a practitioner of the physical arts. So it was a natural thing for him to seek something that was as authentic as what Bruce Lee had passed down to Jerry Petit, and then from Jerry passed down to him. So they, both Bill and Ed, share in that a passion for the true source. So the first step they both had to go through was Qiu Dao. So this is a ritual. So what we went through here, Tanzu, that's a title. That's what they are now. They're both owners of the shrine. Qiu Dao, step one, is a ritual. Qiu means to request or to ask. Dao, that's just T-A-O. That's the same as this Dao here. So the way it sounds in Chinese, Qiu Dao. And this is what we would usually call the Tao initiation ritual. So nobody really has to go through that, but if you intend to eventually become a Tanzu, then suddenly it's a requirement. Okay, so that's important. Then both Bill and Ed had to understand and accept the requirements that go into becoming a Tanzu. That is, they have to learn the rituals and practice them daily. And I will talk a little bit, I will give you a little more details about that. What are the rituals? What are they? How do they learn? How they practice, etc. Second, they have to both become vegetarian. And there's a ritual for that later on as well in item number 3. And then the third sub-item is that they have to become an example. They have to provide spiritual leadership for the people around them. So it's not just anyone that can become Tanzu. It's someone who has the commitment to do things that other people are not willing to do or don't have the enough commitment to be able to do. That's what makes them special. So the rituals to be done every day, right off the bat, that's going to turn away many people from seeking the path of Tanzu. Becoming a vegetarian, well, that's also not easy. Some people already are, but that's still the minority in our culture today. Minority by far. And then to become a teacher for others, well, that's what many people want to do, no doubt about it. However, a lot of people want to do that without the difficult commitments. And that would only become a showcase for one's ego. It will become behaviors driven by ego. I'm the teacher, y'all have to listen to me, that type of thing. Then both Bill and Ed had to go through Chinko. The first character means to cleanse. The second character means the mouth. So it would seem to suggest the ritual to cleanse the mouth. And you may be thinking, hey, I brush my teeth every day. Is that Chinko? No, that is actually not Chinko. The ritual itself has a lot more significance built into it. It's not just talking about vegetarianism. The vegetarianism is symbolic. The idea is that the mouth is where a lot of trouble happens, both stuff going in, like the foods that we consume, the greasy, rich foods that we all love, let's admit it, we all love it, and also the stuff going out, that is, the things we say that get us in trouble, the rumors that we pass around, the gossip, when we are gossip mongering, that's going out of the mouth, and it's actually something that's detrimental, that takes away from our spiritual cultivation. So this gateway, this mouth that we all have is a source of trouble to our health going in, and our interactions, our relationship with other people, stuff going out, things we talk about. To cleanse this thing, this portal, the mouth, it means to cleanse the body health-wise by picking and choosing what you consume in a very conscientious way, and also in picking and choosing what you say to other people, so that you always act and speak in accordance with the higher standards. That's what the Chinko ritual means. So sometimes people just call it a vegetarian vow, but it's actually a lot more than vegetarianism. So both Ed and Bill have gone through that. Then it's the process. They go through the process to assemble the shrine. So that's where, beyond the initial understanding, acceptance, the taking on of duties, this part is a community effort, that there are many people who will want to support you in doing this work, so they all come together to volunteer themselves. So some people will help obtain these items, these elements that make up a shrine, which many of these are difficult to come by here in the United States, here in the West. The picture that I have here on the left, this shows what the shrine looks like upstairs at this temple, and the one on the right, this is Bill's shrine. This is what Bill has in his house. And what Ed has at his facility, the Kata Training Center, is similar to Bill's in scope. So there's a lot of interesting things about it. What I started out chatting about this morning with Bill was this element right here in the middle, the urn that holds the ash from the incense. So the incense sticks go here. And in the temple shrine, it's right here in the middle. So the ash allows the incense sticks to stand straight up. That's how it's usually done. When you go, if you were to go shopping for an incense burner, you will see some designs where the incense stick is sticking out diagonally. So that's never done in the Chinese or in the Buddhist culture. It's always sticking straight up. And what some people will do is to take a bowl or a cup, fill it with sand, and then stand the incense sticks on it that way. So there's a lot of interesting things associated with the shrine. So let me talk about the path that Bill and Ed went on. So Bill wanted to become a Tao master. That was what he was after from the beginning, more than 10 years ago when I met him. Now later on, though, he would encounter this explanation from the other masters, the other people who were already ordained masters. So they explained to him. It made him realize one thing, that what he thought of as a Tao master was in fact not exactly the same as his original conception. So when you don't really know how differently things are done, it is easy to assume that an ordained master is similar or equivalent to a preacher or a pastor at a Christian church. So in fact, that is not the case. There are many duties that the ordained masters have that have to do with the keeping things running, administration, planning activities, and some ordained masters may not be doing any teaching at all, rather become just administrators. So whereas the people that do help spread the teachings of the Tao, they themselves may not be the ordained masters. So it could be someone like myself in the Tao, in the shrine, in the temple. This is known as a 讲师, which is more like a lecturer. So someone like Bill, what he wanted was a role to help spread the teachings of the Tao. So what he is today as a Tanzu is actually the closest match to what he thought of before as a Tao master. So he's doing the talk every Sunday, and he's also someone who is expected to be an example and to provide spiritual leadership by example, by personal example. So he has actually arrived at his destination. It's going by a different name, but it's what he wanted from the beginning. Now, for Ed's experience was that he sensed, the first time he visited the temple, he sensed this energy, this very positive flow of energy that was very real to him. Now, Ed is a very experienced practitioner of meditation, so he knew that this was something that he could tap into at a deep state of meditation. Now, he lives pretty far away in Valencia. It would take him 45 minutes by car to get here. So luckily, in Valencia, there's another Tao cultivator, a family that has a very nice shrine in their home. So, Ed became friends with them and would oftentimes ask to borrow their shrine. That is, he would go to their home and he would just meditate in there. And it is exactly the same as he has sensed the first time. Pretty much every experienced person with meditation will be able to get to that point where you feel this incredible energy that comes from that's concentrating at the shrine that you can make use of to reach a deeper and more powerful level of meditative state. So at that point, Ed knew that he has to end up with a shrine. He has to do whatever it takes to become Tanzu. At that point, he had already gone through number one, 求道. Then he probed himself. He asked himself the question, am I willing to do the rituals and practice every day? There's extensive rituals that you have to do, seasonal rituals that you have to do on a regular basis. Am I willing to become vegetarian? At that point, he confided that, before he was he was consuming just an American diet like everyone else. He would just, wolf down a burger, but he wasn't really attached to the meat. He was, by understanding nutrition, he knew that he could give that up. But there was one thing that he found very difficult to give up, and that was sushi. So I advised him at the time that, listen, I'll take you to this restaurant called Shoujin, where it's completely vegan, and you will absolutely love it. I know because I also loved sushi, and I enjoy everything that I do at Shoujin. So he made a decision to become a vegetarian. He went through Chinko, the ritual, and he made up his mind that indeed he will become an example of spiritual cultivation for all. So it is perhaps no surprise that today he gave a talk right after Bill, because he is now expressing his understanding and helping to spread the message of the Tao. That is the path that he is on. And he went through the same process, assembling the shrine, this communal effort where everyone pitches in, everyone helps. That's documented. He wrote about it in his in an article that is now up on the website. Okay, so the other really good question is that, well, what if I'm not ready to do all this? Then what can I do? Well, there's a lot you can do. So I myself am not Tanzu at this point. So my situation is a little bit different because my parents have a shrine of their own. They are Tanzu. So when they pass on, the expectation is that I will inherit that. At that point, I will become Tanzu, but I am not a Tanzu yet. However, I do the next best thing, which is what I want to share with the group, which was also huge number of questions from last time, and that's this slide about the sacred space. And I see that I missed one slide. Let me go back to it. Here, I've just captured a page from the book. This is what Bill and Ed have studied. It's a book about 225 pages, I believe. So it's not light reading. It's all laid out like this, with Chinese on the left-hand side, with English translation on the right-hand side, and for every step in the ritual, there's pronunciation guide below. Those of you who have studied Chinese, well, when you look at this enough, you will realize that this is not in accordance with any system that's down below the Chinese characters. And yet, what I have here is going to be the most accurate guide to pronouncing Chinese characters that you will find. Beyond the systems that scholars have devised, which are difficult and sometimes will mislead you into pronouncing things incorrectly, this will always show you how to pronounce things correctly. This system down below the Chinese, it doesn't have a name. It's just a method of convenience. I do explain it in the book. Okay, so now, what about creating your own sacred space? You don't have to become Tanzu. It's not required. You don't have to become a vegetarian. You don't have to go through the Qiu Dao ritual. You don't have to go through the Qingkou ritual. Nobody will think any less of you if you don't decide to do any of those things. As long as you cultivate and practice and study the Tao, you are a Tao cultivator. So what if you want to be a Tanzu light, L-I-T-E, and just create a sacred space for yourself? You can do that anytime. It doesn't require communal effort. It doesn't require all those steps. You can create one of your own today if you want to. And some of you listening, you already have your own. So for those of you that haven't but been thinking about this idea, I know there's quite a few of you because I was inundated with questions last time. I want to provide you with some thoughts over a few slides to talk about the major elements. The major elements to get you started that'll cover the why, the where, the who, the what, and the how. So the why will be your purpose. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to create a sacred space? Well, it's a spiritual oasis. It's a sanctuary for your own rituals, rituals that you create for yourself, your own meditative practice, whatever that is. And you don't have to go into a meditative trance. If you want to, you can just be sitting by yourself and contemplate life, contemplate destiny. Where are you in this journey? Where have you been? Where are you today? Where are you going? These are all very good things to think about. And overall, these practices will have the effect of renewing your spirit, renewal of the soul. So that's the reason why you may want to do something like this. Now, you want to take care of the where. This is always a major concern. There are people who will right off the bat say, well, I have this spot in my yard, that I really enjoy. I enjoy sitting there. That's my sacred space. Now, I'll speak from the perspective of the Tao and say that when I talk about the sacred space, it's usually not a spot on the outside. It's usually a place inside the house, and that's only out of practical considerations. If it is outside in the yard, nothing wrong with that, but you know that it can get pretty late at night, it can get cold and dark outside. Sometimes the weather doesn't permit that you spend time with your sacred space that is external to the house. So for those practical considerations, the Chinese people themselves, when they want to establish a sacred space, it will be indoors. So you can access that any time of the day, no matter what the weather happens to be. So it would be a room or part of a room. When I talk about room, so people who are serious about this, like there are many Chinese Tao cultivators, when they move into a new place, the very first thing they think about is which one of these rooms should I set aside for the shrine? You know? Then that becomes the sacred space. Now, for many people that perhaps are just getting into this for the first time, you will look at the place where you live, and you will feel like, well, every room is being used up. So I don't really have a room that I can free up for that. If so, it can be part of a room. It can be a corner of the room. It can be one half of a room, whatever works out for you. It doesn't need to be very big. So room, corner of a room, but this is important. What if you say, well, I have a basement, and if it's a very enclosed space, what happens is that it doesn't, for at least the Chinese tradition, it doesn't give you the connection that you would want to sunlight, to air currents from the outside, connection with nature. So the recommendation is always going to be that a room that's well lit, natural lighting, and well ventilated, with windows that you can open to the outside. That would be ideal. So something that's completely enclosed, people usually, there are some airports that have created rooms for meditation, and these are very enclosed spaces. It will be very different from what the Chinese conception is for the sacred space. So you would always want that. You would always want the natural lighting and ventilation, and you would also want to look at the traffic pattern in your home, and you wouldn't want to set something up in a hallway that people are passing through all the time. Okay, and I have a couple of pictures here. These are just a couple of really inexpensive $90 screens from Walmart. They are ideas that you can, if you want to section off a part of your room and use that as your sacred space, you can entertain using something like this, some screens, set up a screen or curtains to divide it up so that when you are in the sacred space, you feel like that's an entity all by itself and that it's not mixed in with the rest of the room. So then it becomes special. So that's the second part, the where part. So let's go through more. Okay, spiritual focus is the what. Now, when you have an Kuan Tao shrine, it's always going to be a very special candle flame in the center that has a design. It has Wu Ji, which means without limits in the center. There's a flame that is lit. It represents the Tao. So when you don't have that, what people will use for spiritual focus sometimes is that they will perhaps use a statue of the Buddha, maybe Jesus on a cross, etc. However, I always recommend that you use a flame just like they do for Kuan Tao, because then that can represent the concept that you have in mind. The concept that could be formless. Flame is the better representation for the formless. Now, so for your own altar, you can set up a small table against the wall. If you want to, you can put a special cloth over it that can give it that feeling of something sacred, something divine. And my recommendation is that you have a candle holder in the center. Now, where you place the altar, I'm going to have to leave that up to your intuition. I would encourage that in the space that you set aside for your sacred space, that you try different orientations and see which one feels really good to you. There are also subtle distinctions between setting up a sacred space as opposed to setting up an Kuan Tao shrine. So, example, Kuan Tao shrine, you don't want to set it up against a window because that opens out to the outside. You want to set it up because it's got a certain height to it. You want to set up against a wall so that it has that feeling of being backed, that solidity. So what Ed did there is kind of interesting. He has a room that has a large window, and so when we looked at it, I suggested to him that, well, we can put blinds on it and then put a curtain over that. Therefore, the effect becomes more like a wall. And what he did was something very creative that worked out really well. He used a curtain. He didn't use a curtain like you see in a hotel room that blocks lights completely, 100%. He used a curtain that still allows the light to come through. So during the day, so you've got the window here, you've got the curtain in front of it, and then you have the shrine that's all set up. During the day, it forms a halo effect. There's light coming through all around it, and yet it has this very nice presentation. So the effect is very striking. And everyone that has meditated there has sensed that specialness and that energy. Now, in a sacred space, you could decide that, well, I have a small altar here, and I have a window here, and it has a nice view, of the courtyard, of a stream, of trees, grass, etc. So that could be a place for that. It depends on your intuitive voice. So that's what this part means. So the recommendation for a Tao-oriented sacred space altar is to disengage from the need to tie it to a particular religious path, to make it something that is more general and all-embracing and all-inclusive, so that anyone from any path can be receptive to its divine energies. So that's the reason the flame can be used to represent metaphysical force or principle rather than a specific deity. If you put Buddha in there, well, that's the Buddha. That's very specific to the Buddhism path. And lastly, the third bullet item is also very important. I want to recommend everyone that if you haven't tried it yet, if you start experimenting with lighting an incense at home, it has a really dramatic effect. Incense, by the way, is really inexpensive. You can find them anywhere. And yet, when you light one in the home, especially when you have a special place and you light one there, it has such an incredibly dramatic effect. It will truly transform the way you feel the moments that you light that. And what I would further recommend is that you have the flame, you have the candle holder in the back, a little bit further to the back of the small table, and you have your incense burner in front of it. So here's an example. The picture is an example of an incense burner, but there are many possibilities. I'll just say that typically for the Chinese, the incense sticks go straight up, just like this. So the ash from the incense will fall into the cup or the holder. So let's cover the who. The who is you, and it's important for you to figure out a place where you are in your sacred space. So the idea is to not set up another den, another place where you can work. The idea is to not have a chair, but to allow yourself to be low, on close to the floor, close to the ground level. So I recommend a cushion in the middle of the space where you can sit facing the altar. And I make it a point to say you want to create distance from distractions. What I mean by that will be auditory distractions like alarms that may go off, your cell phone that can notify you of incoming email, or requests to chat from friends, or maybe notification from Farmville. I don't know. It could be many different things. Or computers could chime when an email comes in. So all of these become distractions. And so as you create the space, you want to make sure that you have barriers where you can keep these distractions away from you, or to minimize their impact. Okay, so one more slide. This is the how, and that's using your sacred space. So you don't have to, but you can optionally add items of special significance to yourself. If you want to, maybe a Tao symbol, perhaps a yin and yang symbol, or perhaps a Bagua. If you want to, perhaps a figurine of the Buddha or the Bodhisattva. That's what I have at home. I I have the Guanyin Bodhisattva, I have the Maitreya Buddha. These represent compassion and generosity, respectively. These remind me of the things that I have to work on myself. If you want to, a painting of tranquility or a painting of something else, anything that holds deep meaning for you. However, I follow this up with a bullet that specifically says less is more. So if you are questioning whether or not something belongs in your sacred space, the answer should probably be no. You want to keep the space as uncluttered as possible. Give it the minimum that you need to establish that special feeling and not clutter it up with a lot of different items. Now, here's another how, and this can be challenging. This can be very difficult. The cushion in the middle of the sacred space should be something that you can also use to prostrate yourself, to lower yourself. This is difficult and challenging. I happen to know personally many people cannot do that. They will feel like they will say, I will never lower myself. Okay? So they can talk a great game about humility, but when it comes time to actually do it, they cannot do it. That will be another sign of ego manifestation. So you are not really, by prostration, I am not saying that you lower yourself to worship something. I am saying that you prostrate, you lower your head to be in touch with this strange mixture of specialness and complete insignificance that is you. So you are at the same time incredibly unique, incredibly special in the cosmos, and also infinitely tiny. Are you able to get in touch with that? Can you lower yourself in that regard? And in contemplating all the good things in life, are you humble enough to lower yourself and give thanks to everything? Or will your ego speak in a louder voice and say that I alone am the source of all the good things that happen to me? So I'll be the first to say that if that is what you thought, that you alone are the source of all the good things, that you still have quite a bit of work to do. It's never true. We all rely on the help of others, even at the same time that we are helping others as well. Just as you have made a difference in other people's lives, other people have made a difference in your life. So there's always a reason to give thanks. There's always a reason to feel humble. That could be extremely challenging to some. So another great reason for using the sacred space is for quiet contemplation, reflecting on your journey so far. Where have you been? How have things gone in the last leg of the journey? That is, in the recent past, have you done things that have either intentionally or inadvertently damaged other people? And if that is the case, it doesn't matter that you started out with good intentions. What matters is that you have acted in a way that is less than skillful, thus causing the damage. And if that is the case, you want to reflect on that, review that, think about the remedies. Now, so a couple more items. I also find the sacred space to be a very good way to be in touch with your inner wellspring of creativity. So people that know how to do this, if you're involved in the creative fields, whether you are artistic, a musician, a writer, anything that involves creativity, if you do that practice on a regular basis, something like the writer's block will never be an issue. You will always know how to tap into this infinite source where all ideas come from. Lastly, for the best meditative experience, my advice, this is, we're getting into a realm where this is strictly my opinion, so I like everyone to take this with a grain of salt. My advice is to keep it simple. The reason why I want to put an emphasis here is because I see people doing things that I feel are not necessary. I've used a positive example here. This monk from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, you'll notice his hands are resting comfortably in his lap. The hands are extremely relaxed. So I'm going to take one step back and share with everyone that I have tried probably all the different meditative techniques known to man, and I have gone into each one with a very open mind and tried it for minimum 4 or 5 months, just to see what it's like, just to experience what it is like. So there are many variations. One of the variations is the mudra. The mudra is a hand gesture. So when you, for instance, when you look up meditation and look up images, you're going to see endless number of images where people are doing their mudras in their meditation like this. Okay, many, many pictures that are like that. So that was me also in the beginning of my journey, learning how to meditate for the first time. Did that for months and months, and that was actually like 6, 7 months of doing it that way. Then later on, I tried another different style, again, just to see what it's like, and it was much more similar to this, sitting in a lotus position with the hands comfortably resting in the lap, just like that. What I discovered was that perhaps it is the stripped down nature, the simplicity of it, the streamlined nature of it, I was actually able to go much further in my own personal meditative practice. So if your experience is the opposite, if you actually get better results with the mudra, don't let me sway you or change your mind. If you haven't really started a meditative practice yet, what I would like to share with you is that sometimes you can strip it down to the bare essence, but no further, and get better results that way. So sometimes less is more, just like what I'm saying here for the surroundings of the sacred space. Less is more. Aim for simplicity. Later on, after learning the meditation this way, I was able to get even further by not having the lotus position, but just sitting on the ground. So that's it was useful to me personally, because there's going to be a lot of people who will say, well, when you sit in the lotus position, you can feel energy coursing up and down through your spine. Great. At the same time, the people that I practiced with, about half of them could not get into the lotus position. So every time we get together as a group to meditate, half of the people there will all require help to bend their legs into the lotus position. And then I know they suffer a little bit of physical discomfort through the next half hour when we meditate together. That discomfort can become distracting. So it depends on how flexible you are. Some people have no trouble at all. One of my friends who was practicing with me at the time, he bought Velcro strips that are designed to keep you in the lotus position. So once he gets help getting into that position, we put the Velcro strip around him, Velcro, and when we're half an hour is up, we're done, right? My friend needs help. Undo the Velcro and then help him get out of the lotus position. So my suggestion, guys, keep it simple. The important thing is what happens in the mind when you go deeper, when you become quiet, when you become so quiet in the mind. That really is the essence of meditation. So I would object to people forcing mudras or positions on me. Sometimes I think they just follow what they've been taught without experimenting with different alternatives to see what works for them. So that's the basis of my recommendation. Your mileage may vary. Take what I say with a grain of salt. I recommend a very simple approach, just sitting on the ground with your hands very relaxed. Forget about the variations. The mudra, that's just one of them. There are many other variations. There is this. There's this for meditation. Okay, that gets very tiring. There's this for meditation. Okay, same. In the Tao tradition, there are also people who will use the hand seal in meditation. That actually works really well because your hands can relax as it's resting in the lap. So I don't want to disqualify all mudras. I just want to say, if your hands are getting tired holding the position, don't do it. Keep it easier for yourself. So that's kind of what I have to say about the sacred space. Your thoughts, your ideas are always welcome, but that's the topic that I wanted to cover.